Hi, I'm Antonio Centeno. I'm the founder of Real Men, Real Style. Today I'm going to be tackling the question, how not to be overdressed. So I get this question quite a bit. A lot of people write in there, Antonio, I love your stuff. Great content. I'm learning a lot. However, most of what you talk about seems to be pretty formal. You talk about suits, you talk about sports jackets, you talk about wearing a tie. I don't dress this way. And in fact, no one around me does. How can I look better? How can I dress more professional? At the same time, I don't want to be overdressed. Okay, fair question, makes a lot of sense. Today, I'm going to be giving you 5 tips. So let's go ahead, jump right into it. Notice how I didn't ask you to subscribe? Or did I? Okay, tip number 1, gentlemen, is this really a problem? Now, a lot of times, and I've seen this not just in style, but in just across the board, we oftentimes imagine problems that don't really exist. So my question to you is really, is this going to be the problem that you think it's going to be? A gentleman just wrote me the other day, he's talking about how he lives in a rural area and he doesn't really, no one's ever going to see him dressing sharp, so why should he do it? Maybe just going up to a school. I thought it was funny because this really describes my situation. I live in a town of just over 1,000 people. The only time people really see me dressed up is when I meet with my son's teacher, my daughter's teacher. I'm out spending time with my kids at the parks around town. Now, I'm not wearing a sports jacket all the time, but I do pay attention to the details. However, it's not really a problem. No one's ever asked me, whenever I go to the school, whenever I go shopping and I'm actually wearing a sports jacket, perhaps wearing a tie, no one's ever asked me, hey, you need to dress down. So it really comes down to, and we'll get to point number 2, is there a confidence problem? And so number 2, I think you need to have confidence to be the best dressed man in the room. So oftentimes, if you actually care about how you present yourself, and you're in a profession that requires you to dress a bit up in a situation in which you're going to be, let's say you're a lawyer in a small town, you're a business consultant in a medium-sized town. Well, for your profession, dressing a bit higher makes a lot of sense. You want to do this because really when it comes down to it, you're almost always on the clock. You could run into a client and you need to have the confidence, I think, to dress sharp. You have the confidence because you understand what your why is. Now, we just had a repairman out at my house to fix my washing machine. Did I expect to see him in a suit? No, wouldn't have made sense. And in fact, for what he had to do to get down under the washer and change out the pump, we had an issue. I had a pillow get torn apart and ended up jamming the pump. But in any case, for him to do what he needed to do, he didn't want to actually wear really nice, now I would say nice clothing, luxury clothing made from wool, but what he did have is a cotton work shirt on. He did have actually a company uniform. He had work pants. He had work boots that would protect him. And so he's able to get down. The clothing's dark. It makes sense. He knew what his why was. He was dressed for the occasion. So understand, if you don't want to be overdressed, really, again, is it really a problem? Have the confidence to dress sharp if you know what your why is and if the situation requires it. Number 3, let's know the situation. So getting back, I talked about the repairman, but look at the situation, look at the environment, have a little bit of information. If you're going into a job interview, okay, well go ahead, and I just was talking to a gentleman about this. If you're going to go to a manufacturing plant and you check out what they're wearing, well, if they've got a uniform that everyone seems to wear, cotton, I don't know, pullover overalls or something like that, that's not how you're going to dress for the interview. But if you know that's what you're applying for, that's what you're normally going to be wearing, then I'm not saying that you need to wear a suit to that interview, because you understand the situation. You realize this is a blue-collar job. However, I want to show I pay attention to the details, that I care about the small things, because oftentimes those jobs, that is very important. And I mean, you can have on-the-job injuries. If someone doesn't really care about those details, if they're not watching things, then that could lead to an injury. So what you want to do is, okay, think about your appearance. What do people look like when they're getting off of work, when they're going into work outside that uniform? And how can I take it up one notch? So perhaps you want to wear a very well-fitted but simple white dress shirt, perhaps skip the tie, go with a dark pair of dress slacks, have a nice pair of shoes that are shined. Now, again, you're not having to throw in a full suit here, but you are a step above most of the guys that are going into, let's say, work in a pair of, maybe a polo with khakis. So that is a step above. You're going to look great. The clothing fits you, and you're able to make it happen. So again, know the situation, know the environment. Number 4, wear flexible outfits. So if you really feel that you're going to be showing it to events, I had one gentleman, he was actually a pastor, and he would go out and he would work, his church was out kind of in the country, but he would work with a number of execs as well. So he was transitioning between a big city and small town. Church was out in the country, so he would actually wear clothing that would allow him to dress up and to dress down. The great thing about a sports jacket, you can take it off. Great thing about a necktie, you can take it off. So it is something that you can dress up, you can dress down for the situation. Don't be afraid to change either if you feel that it warrants, that the situation warrants, and you want to send the right message. Number 5, and I talked about this very quickly, but I want to focus in on it. Focus on the fit of your clothing. So you can have 2 guys, and we saw this in the military all the time. 2 guys wearing the same exact uniform. However, one uniform fits the gentleman. It actually is squared away, it's cleaned up, it's ironed, it's pressed. So pay attention to those small details. First, focus on the fit, then make sure anything that you're wearing the best quality that you can afford, and then focus on the little style details, making sure that you're not wearing anything that's dated, anything that isn't going to work. And that's it, gentlemen. I would have to say, let's go to point number 2, and I really want to hark on this, is it's okay to be the best dressed man in the room. Have the confidence, know who you are, know what you stand for. You're not going to have a problem. All right, guys, take care. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.